Every South American country which has had its government overthrown by the CIA since 1947. Costa Rica in 1948, Guatemala 1954, El Salvador 1979, Nicaragua 1981, Panama 1989, Paraguay 1954, Brazil 1964, Peru 1968, Chile 1973, Uruguay 1973, Argentina 1976, and Venezuela in 2002. Many of these were perceived as ideologically opposed to the United States, were leftist dictatorships, or were some combination of the two.
Shalom, welcome to another video, and as always, before I get started, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachwadash, and next double honors to the head apostles / elder bishops of the Great Millstone who teach and who rule well. Peace, blessings, and safety to all you sincere Akim. Keep pushing, keep believing, and keep the faith, regardless of whether people hear or whether they forbear. All right, so this is going to be a reaction to the clip that I played in the introduction of this video, all right, where this guy, all right, he showed you, okay, in multiple different so-called Latin American countries where the United States government, particularly the Alphabet Agency, all right, I'm not going to mention it, but the United States government went in and had a role in overthrowing, all right, different governments within Latin America, causing civil war, instability, all right. And as I've made videos I talked about before, this is the reason why a lot of different nations around the world are poor. Okay, it's not because the leaders are stupid, all right, or they're just barbarians. Okay, you know, it's not because they're not able to build a functioning nation, but because, as I said before, what the United States does, the way that Esau has gotten rich, which Esau is the ruler over what's known of as the beast system, all right, the European power structure, and America, all right, the woman that rides on top of the beast, okay, which is America, Babylon the Great, all right. So Esau rules over this empire, all right, and what he does, the West has gotten rich by them going over to different countries, all right, and destabilizing the country purposely so that they can go in there and then pillage the resources, okay. So this clip, as you saw, he named a bunch of different Latin American countries, probably 10 or 11 of them, where different, at different times, within the past 100 years, that their country was purposefully destabilized, all right, and once again for the purpose of pillaging resources, okay, from that nation. So I actually went and pulled some of them up. All right, we're gonna go ahead and read about some of them, and then bring out some prophecies. And Jehovah Ratchazami, Heavenly Father's will is edifying to the elect. All right, so the first one I got is the one in Costa Rica. I believe that was the first one mentioned. All right, all I did is type in CIA Costa Rica 1948. It says in 1948, Costa Rica experienced a civil war, and while the exact extent of the CIA involvement is debated, it's widely believed that the United States played a role in the conflict. The Civil War stemmed from political and social tensions with a corrupt regime and accusations of communist support. The U.S., concerned about the perceived communist threat, may have actively interfered, potentially through providing support to one side. All right, what does this mean? Once again, okay, they go in and they support a rebel group, all right, and they destabilize the country. That way, when the rebel group wins the war, all right, they're able to pretty much set up puppet leaders and say, okay, this is what you're going to do, all right, or we're going to blacklist you and we're going to target you next. All right, you're going to allow us to pillage the resources, and in turn, you're going to stay quiet and you'll become very rich. And that's the reason why in a lot of these different countries, as I said before, all right, that a lot of these countries are dirt poor and they have rich leaders, okay, because they've made backdoor deals with the United States government, all right. Because why would the United States be down there in Costa Rica? What does that have to do with anything going up here? Okay. But anyways, it says, continuing on, the conflict ultimately led to the overthrow of Picando government and the establishment of a provisional junta, followed by a return to constitutional government in 1949. In other words, okay, the government that was already established was overthrown, all right, by the help of the United States, and then they set up their own government where the members would allow them to pillage the country for those resources. Okay. So let's get another one. All right, the next one we'll go to is Guatemala. All right. Okay, this one was the 1954 Guatemala coup d'etat. And if you don't know what that word means, all right, let me see if I can highlight it. Oh, it won't let me. That's all right. All right, so, okay, I scroll down here. All right, look what it says. It says, an AI overview. In 1954, the CIA orchestrated a coup in Guatemala, codenamed Operation PB Success, which overthrew the democratically elected president, Jacobo Arbenz. Okay, so, once again, what are they doing down there in Guatemala? It says this coup was motivated by concerns about Guatemala's land reform policies, which had expropriated land owned by the United Fruit Company. The CIA's actions led to the installation of a military dictatorship under Carlos Castilla Armas and set the stage for decades of instability and human rights abuses in Guatemala. You see what it just? Are you reading this? Are you seeing? You listening to what I'm saying? To what's being said here? Okay, let's read that again. My highlight. All right. The CIA's actions led to the installation of a military dictatorship under Carlos Castilla Armas and set the stage for decades of instability and human rights abuses in Guatemala. So this happened. They had a leader that they elected, and the CIA came and overthrew him. Okay, and then these same people will come to America because their country's destroyed because of most of the time the American government or another Western government, and then they'll call them criminals and crooks and thieves and all that when they're literally just trying to once again get better opportunities because you destroyed their country. Okay, this is what Esau does, man. All right, and then see what Esau will do is he'll paint it in the media, all right, as if he was going there to make the nation better, when really the whole time all he was going down there for was to take the resources. All right, let's continue on. It says Operation PB Success. The CIA's plan involved a covert operation including the use of propaganda. See that? What did I say? I just said that propaganda. All right, demonizing people. Okay, they labeled them as evil, and they're the good guys, they're the heroes, and really the whole time it's the opposite. All right, bombing raids and the support of a small force of freedom fighters led by Castillo Armas. Okay, so these were supposed to be freedom fighters. Okay, but then after Armas took over, it said that his rulership, his dictatorship, led to decades of instability and human rights abuses in Guatemala. Okay, now here's the question. If the United States government actually cared about that, why wouldn't they now take down Armas? Okay, because they never cared about Guatemalan people. They cared about the resources that they could pillage from Guatemala. All right, motivations. Okay, let's see what it says. It says the U.S. government feared that Guatemala's land reform policies, which nationalized property, including some owned by the fruit company, could lead to the spread of communism in the region. Okay, and here's the thing. Once again, why do they care? Okay, why does it matter? They put it under the guise of spreading democracy. Okay, which literally, as you read, it said that before the overthrow, before the coup, they had a democratically elected president, Jacobo Arbenz, who they overthrew. See, so you see how you see how contradictory this is just within this little bit that we're reading here. Okay, and this is good to study this stuff because then you know what you're up against. Okay, this is how Esau gets down, man. And he's gonna do the same thing. He tries to do the same thing with us. All right, with the Hebrew Israelites, he got plants and agents set up. Okay, this is the next one. All right, I typed in CIA El Salvador 1979. Okay, it says in 1979, the CIA and the U.S. government were deeply involved in El Salvador, particularly during the Salvadorian coup d'etat, which is an overthrow. All right, that overthrew President Carlos Humberto Romero and established the revolutionary government junta. The coup, led by young military officers, was a response to growing political crisis and fears of a communist revolution, similar to what had occurred in Nicaragua. The CIA provided training and funding to the Salvadorian military, and the U.S. government supported the new military government, hoping to maintain stability. All right, so, okay, now, oh man, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. Okay, I don't have to keep going in. Okay, this is stuff that that you can read and study, but let's just get one or two more. Okay, the one we just read in Nicaragua. All right, as you see here, once again, the United States going to the other parts of the world, getting themselves involved in things that have nothing to do with them. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan authorized the Central Intelligence Agency to support the Contras, a right-wing Nicaraguan political group, to combat the influence held by the Sandinistas in the Nicaraguan government. All right, so same thing. All right, let's get one more. Okay, the Brazilian coup d'etat. All right, 1964 Brazilian coup d'etat was the overthrow of Brazilian President Jaume Goulart by a military coup from March 31st to April 1st, 1964, ending the Fourth Brazilian Republic and initiating the Brazilian military dictatorship. The coup took the form of a military rebellion, the declaration of vacancy in the presidency by the National Congress on April 2nd, and the formation of a military junta, the supreme command of the revolution, and the exile of the president on April 4th. In his place, Ranieri Mazzilli, the president of the Chamber of Deputies, took over until the election by Congress of General Humberto del Alencar Castillo Branco, one of the leaders of the coup. All right, so once again, all right, now here's well, they don't say anything about the United States in this one. Yes, it does. Okay, scroll down. Look at this. One of the leaders of the coup became president. Look at this. Okay, it talks about the opposing sides. Brazilian government armed forces versus armed forces, in parentheses, rebel. Supported by, on the right side, state governors, congressional opposition, the United States. You see that? Do you see it? Okay, it's no coincidence. The United States helped to overthrow the government in Brazil. Okay, let's get some precepts, man. I've read enough. This is Psalms chapter 140 and verse 1. It says, "Deliver me, O Yahweh, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man." Here's the point in verse 2. We'll click on it. "Which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war." This is a characteristic of Esau, man. Okay? This is what they do. They can't help it. Continuously are they gathered together for war. All right, let's go to Psalm 64. And they do all these things behind the scenes to where people don't know about it. All right, but that's why the Lord has sent out the prophets to expose all these things. Okay, this is Psalm 64 and verse 1. It says, "Hear my voice, O Yahweh. In my prayer, preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity." Okay, because who is the one that is doing all these things behind the scenes? They say in the world, they say all wars are bankers' wars. Okay, the elite banking families, they're the ones pushing these buttons, moving things around. All right, and they're the ones that ultimately control, the United States, the whole Western government. All right, and they eventually going to set up their new world order. But this ain't even really going into that topic. This is more so going into how, as I said before, that's how the West has gotten rich. All right, through spoiling. Okay, not through. They would have Esau would have you to believe that so-called white Americans are just smarter than everyone. They're stronger. They're better than everyone. No, they're just more treacherous. Okay, they're more deceptive. All right, and the whole world is waking up to that. The wicked is being revealed. Okay, through these prophecies, and also through their own tongues. Okay, because this video that was probably made by an Edomite. All right, and you can't see what the guy looks like that's speaking, but most likely. All right, Psalm 64 and verse 8. It says, "So shall they make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away." Okay, there you go. That's it. All right, I'm gonna scoot up to I'm gonna go up to Psalm 64 and 5 now. "They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares. Privily they say, who shall see them?" All right, that's their mindset. Let me get this in a different translation. I'm just curious to see what it says, and we'll close out with these last two scriptures. All right, Psalm 64 and verse 5. It says, "They encourage each other to do evil." It's in the NLT, by the way. "They encourage each other to do evil and plan how to set their traps in secret. Who will ever notice?" they ask. Okay, and see, nobody thinks about these things. Nobody. If you told somebody that the government does this kind of stuff, they would say that you're a conspiracy theorist. Okay, that's what they would say. But no, this is documented information. And a lot of times it's on their website. They'll tell you that they have these different operations where they go and do these things. Okay, but they release it years later, and then people think, oh, that was back then. No, they still do stuff like this to this very day. Okay, Psalm 64:6 NLT. It says, as they plot their crimes, they say, we have devised a perfect plan. Yes, the human heart and mind are cunning. Okay, so this is how, once again, this is how Esau gets down. Okay, but just wanted to show you that because I always say it, but I love when I come across videos like this where you can see, that the things that I'm saying are true. This is how, the West has gotten rich. All right, and this is the way of Esau Edom, and these works that they do, all right, prove that they're the Edomites. Okay, let's go ahead and close out with that one. Matter of fact, okay, Jeremiah 49 at verse 10. All right, it says, but I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. Okay, the Lord is exposing him through this word. Okay, everybody knows who Esau is now because of us. All right, even Christians who don't want to admit that Esau is a so-called white man. Okay, well, they know he is. That's the reason why they're fighting so hard to try to get Esau delivered. Try to find one scripture, okay, where Esau can be saved. All right, but no, the Most High, he sees all these things that he do, and he's gonna bring justice. All right, Jeremiah 49 and 10. But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, because these Edomites, they'll rob their own people. All right, and that's what's happening now. That's the reason why white Americans are having uprisings, because they were perfectly fine as long as it was the so-called Negroes and Latinos that were, in a lower state. But now that it's happening to your average, everyday white American, now it's a problem. Okay, so-called white. It says, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not. Okay, these elites, they want to sift every last little bit out from the people, even their own people. Okay, that's how they get down. Okay, I believe it was the WEF that said that you shall have nothing and you shall like it. You shall own nothing and be happy. Something to that effect. Okay, and once again, their works prove who they are. All right, but anyways, I just wanted to show this video. Yahweh wretches, I was edifying. As always, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rach, Wadash. And until next time, Shalom, and abide b'ball.